All right, this morning, I hope you don't find this a little too boring, but we got an election coming up in November, and I thought I'd bring you a Sunday school lesson on 10 things to look for in a ruler. Now, these are biblical things. We can probably come up with 100 different things you'd like to see in a ruler. Now, let me preface this by saying you're not going to find a perfect one, not till the Lord Jesus Christ returns. And, in His absence, we can only look and try to find the best of the bunch. Problem is that it doesn't pay to really be a ruler in the United States. It's got power connected with it, but no money. So everybody becomes athletes and other things, where they pay plenty of money. And probably all the true statesmen and true talent are finding better ways to make a better living, or at least more of it, by not involving themselves in politics. On the other hand, then we've got that bunch that's in there that have been lining their pockets with taxpayers' money and using it and the insider information to line their pockets. And if you're not aware of this, I don't know where you've been. It's constant. And years ago, when I was in Romania, I was astounded at the level of corruption in their government. I mean, it was all the way down to the lowest guy. I'm talking about below the mayor. It just permeated their entire society. And I come back here, and guess what I see? I see that same corruption, and it's now permeated just about every level of our government. And it's all done for the purpose of power. And with a ruler does have power. A president, a king, a prime minister, they have power. But when they're using that power to mold their world the way they want, that's the reason why we have the Constitution. The Constitution is the overall plan. It's a good plan. It's not a perfect plan. You're not going to find one. Listen, the form of government in the Bible is not a republic or even a democracy. It's a monarchy. Jesus Christ is King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Kings are great if you get a good one. Get a bad one? It can be pretty bad. And that's just the way it goes. And the Lord usually gives us the leaders we deserve. Every now and then we get a leader that we don't deserve that does a good job. I believe that's now, but I believe there's some caveats to that. One, I don't think it'll make a difference in the long run. Number two, I forgot what number two was. I was going to say something, I can't remember it. Anyway, let's talk about these 10 things. I'll think of it here in a second. Oh, I know what it does. He has such a character and a nature that half the country hates him and half the country likes him. That's a divided country. It's not a good thing. And I don't think they hate him because of how he acts. I don't think they hate him because of his braggadocious nature. I don't think they hate him because he tweets a lot. I do think they hate him because he is not a globalist. And he is taking us away from that position. And they see it happening, and they realize that, if 4 more years of Trump but it won't matter, because I've said it before, whoever controls the money controls the country, and he doesn't control the money supply. Anyway, let's look at 10 biblical things to look for in a leader. And I've used a majority of these to determine who I voted for. You say, would you vote for a Democrat? I would if the Republican was anti-Semitic. I'd vote for a liberal before I'd vote for someone that's anti-Semitic. Because you want to get your country cursed, just go ahead and vote for one. Who was the guy that kind of had anti-Semitic and he ran for president forever? I don't think he never. Huh? No, not Wallace. He's always on the television. It used to be. I can't think of it. I'll think of it here in a minute. Yeah. But once it got out that he was kind of anti-Semitic, usually the church pulls away from somebody like that. In Genesis 12, 1-3, most of you are really familiar with this passage. It says, now the Lord had said unto Abram, get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred, from thy father's house, unto a land that I will show thee. And I will make of thee a great nation. I will bless thee and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee. And in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. In Zechariah 2:8 it says, for thus saith the Lord of hosts, after the glory hath he sent me unto the nations which spoiled you, for he that toucheth you toucheth the apple of his eye. And I've always believed that. I've always said that I'm glad to be a part of a country that has blessed that Jew over the years. And I think the reason we are in the position we're in and we live the way we live and the food we have, I mean, you know, I've been to grocery stores in Eastern Europe, man, let me tell you something, there's nothing like the grocery stores here. One grocery store here would blow away about a town, a whole city. It's just amazing, the products we have. There was no processed food over there anywhere. Not that we could find. I mean, I could walk in any store. I mean, you know, they had to prove that to a Russian one time, a spy that came over to our side, you know, and he said they feed us all this propaganda about y'all having it so good. And he said, you know, they took him to a place and showed him a grocery store. He said, yeah, but you could have this one planned. You could have this one staged. They said, point in any direction. Just point in a direction, we'll go. And that's really the truth. Point in any direction, you'll find a Walmart, or you'll find a Kroger's, or one of these grocery stores, and it's just stocked full of food. That's a blessing. And this nation has been blessed, and it's been blessed. There's two reasons why God will bless a nation. It says, blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. Okay? Now, we've kind of chucked that when you do realize that, right? The keeping of the Ten Commandments, I'm talking about as a nation, having those basic laws or those basic morals helps also. The other thing is blessing Israel. In May the 14th, 1948, when the vote came down, America was the first nation to step forward and support Israel to be a nation. We were the first ones. Russia was the second. And there's your two superpowers that emerged. So God blesses a nation that blesses that Jew. So I'm looking for a candidate that is not anti-Semitic, that is pro-Israel, one that will bless Israel. You cannot argue with me that this president hasn't been pro-Israel. Secondly, choose a ruler who has a healthy fear of God. That's kind of hard to find. In Exodus 5:2 it said, and Pharaoh said, who is the Lord that I should obey his voice to let Israel go? I know not the Lord, neither will I let Israel go. Well, he's not kind of one I'd want to vote for. You want someone that has a fear of God. And the reason being is if they have a fear of God, they'll watch their step. If you have a fear of God, don't you kind of watch your step? Doesn't something just pull you back and say, no, don't want nothing to do with that, don't want to get involved in that, don't want to, don't want to go to that place or do this thing. That's a fear of God. I know you might do it because you love God, but let's face it, when the love doesn't really come through, that fear will. And either way, if it keeps me out of trouble, the love of God or the fear of God, I'll take both. Romans 3:18 says, there is no fear of God before their eyes. That's the kind of ruler you don't want. They have no fear of God. And because of that, they're willing to, we have got a bunch of people in leadership that want to change the face of this country. They want to wipe out the Constitution. And they want to take away your liberties. And don't think that they're not going to come right after the church as soon as they get the upper hand, because they will. You are the problem in this country. You are, for the most part, you are that other half that does believe in nationalism. I didn't say white nationalism. I said nationalism. We're not globalists. I'm not a globalist. I hope you're not. If you are, you're kind of against the Bible. Any man that loves the world, the love of the Father's not in him. And I'm not for joining up with this world. I don't care how wonderful they make it seem. It's not going to be wonderful. So I'm looking for a president that's looking out for our nation, has a healthy fear of God. Choose a ruler who promotes godliness and honesty so that the people under them can live godly, honest, and peaceable lives. Do you know there's nothing wrong with that? I mean, do we always have to be in some kind of struggle or some kind of conflict? I mean, I can remember growing up, I don't think I ever saw a protest in my life up until, the last 20 years, I guess. I mean, a parade. I don't ever remember a protest. I guess there's some back in the 60s growing up, wasn't in my area, but growing up, I never saw one. In 1 Timothy 2, 1-3, he says, I exhort therefore that first of all, supplications, prayers, intercessions, and giving of thanks be made for all men, for kings and for all that are in authority. And the thing there is, the reason why you pray, whether they're saved or lost, the reason why you pray for your rulers is so that you can have a peaceful life. That's why you pray for them. That we may lead a quiet and peaceable life in all godliness and honesty, for this is good and acceptable in the sight of God our Savior. We don't have to have the towns on fire, the cities on fire, and looters in the street. Just pray for good rulers. Good rulers would have handled this a lot different. And the politics are in play. If you don't know why all this is happening, then it's because of an election. And conquer and divide. What they're trying to do is they're trying to pull these votes over, so they just amplified this thing to a point of ridiculous, where they're looting and burning and protesting in every city because they're trying to get this vote back that they've lost over the last 3 years. And they've done it. Conquer and divide. Thing is, what a nation divided against itself cannot stand. We're going to lose this nation probably sooner rather than later because of this very thing. It already was divided. I mean, come on now. How close is the vote? 51-49, something like that? It's already divided. We're just, right now, I'm just waiting for the thing just to tear itself apart. Charlie Manson, he said that he wanted to create a race war between the black and the white. And then, of course, he was going to offer to run the show after, I don't know, we about killed everybody off. But that's the one thing that he was trying to do when they killed the LeBancas and the Folgers and the Tates or whatever, all those folks that died in that little massacre they staged. They were trying to create a race war. Man, I'll tell you what, it sure does seem like somebody's trying to create a race war. That fella choked out that guy, there's no way, he's going to go to jail. He's going to get what he deserves. But he knew the guy. I want to know about that. I want to know more about that. The guy he's got his knee on that he acts like nonchalantly, he just stand there. He knew that guy, worked with that guy. I want to know about that. Maybe this isn't so much racial as it is a personal vendetta. But nobody's talking about it. Instead, we're just looting, burning towns, cities. Anyway. Choose a ruler that's not a hypocrite. He says Greek for play acting. He said in Job 34, verse 29 and 30, when he giveth quietness, who then can make trouble? And when he hideth his face, who then can behold him, whether it be done against a nation or against a man only, that the hypocrite reign not, lest the people be ensnared. I think I'm a fairly good judge of character, and listen, I could have zero ability to judge character and know that Joe Biden's not the man. If you don't like the way Trump acts, don't tell me you like the way Joe Biden acts. It's embarrassing. Anyway, I'm not here to promote a candidate one way or the other. I guess, I can't say it. If I tell the truth about him, it's going to be promoting one. But he flip-flops all over the place, One day he's for the fuzz, the next day he's against the fuzz. That's an old word for the police, in case y'all didn't know that. Dr. Ark may say, I'm for the fuzz, man, I'm for the fuzz. And you're probably for the police too. When you need them, you want them there. And I can't even imagine even a small town without police. without someone there to call to come in case of, things going awry. I'm talking about just accidents and stuff. I'm just thinking if you get in a car accident, you got to have a police report. You might need the police there to figure out, if one's blaming the other, they can figure it out for you. Who's at fault? Can't even imagine a place without a police force. And yet, that's what they're trying to accomplish. It's crazy. But it's not about, it's political. It's about dividing the country, dividing the vote, and taking the reign in this country. That's what they want. But you get a ruler that's a hypocrite displaying false virtue or religion, a person who acts in contradiction to their stated beliefs or feelings. And there's what worries me. Tell you one thing and then to do exactly the other. By the way, and this is not my opinion. This is the opinion of Candace Owens and other. In fact, I can't remember the name of the fella, but it's a black fella I was listening to on, a couple of different shows, actually. There are a couple of different black men. And they say every 4 years they do this to manipulate and win the black vote and to use this race of people for their own ends. They use them every 4 years. I didn't say that. 4 or 5 black people I listened to over the weekend said that. And they said there's where the crime is. That they could sit there and manipulate a race of people for their own political advantage and create these scenarios every 4 years. Choose a ruler that knows that his power comes from God who gives it and can take it away. That's good, because he certainly can. They're only one heartbeat away from leaving office. In Romans 13:1, let every soul be subject to the higher powers, for there is no power but of God, the powers that be ordained of God. Therefore, that word ordained means chosen. That's why I say that God usually allows a country to have the ruler it deserves. Whenever Israel got out of sorts with God, man, he put some devilish people over them to rule over them. And then when the people cry out, then he'd send a judge and deliver them. Or he'd send some type of deliverance. They get out of sorts, he'd put some horrible, evil man over them. Because God could set them up and take them down. Look at Psalm 75. Psalm 75. He says, unto thee, O God, do we give thanks. Unto thee do we give thanks, that for that thy name is near. Thy name is near, thy wondrous works declare. When I shall receive the congregation, I will judge uprightly. The earth and all the inhabitants thereof are dissolved. I bear up the pillars of it. Selah. I said unto the fools, deal not foolishly. And to the wicked, lift not up the horn. Lift not up your horn on high. Speak not with a stiff neck. For promotion cometh neither from the east, nor from the west, nor from the south, but God is the judge. He putteth down one, and setteth up another. For in the hand of the Lord there is a cup. He talks about this cup of the Amorites. It says, okay, you've got a ruler, God has a cup. And in that cup is all sort of abomination. The wine of his wrath, and it just starts filling up. And when that thing gets full, God just takes the thing and goes. You know what Jesus Christ doesn't want to drink from? A cup. Father's cup. What's it full of? It's full of sin. It says, here, drink it. I'd rather not, Lord. 3 times. You'd asked 4 or 5 times. He asked 3 times. He said, but not my will, but thine be done. He said, drink it. And he became sin. So he has this cup in his hands, and in this nation, that when that cup gets full, he dumps it back on the nation. Because he said the cup of the Amorites is not yet full. He wouldn't let Israel take them. He said their cup's not yet full, but it's getting there. For in the hand of the Lord there is a cup. The wine is red, is full of mixture. And he poureth out the same, but the dregs thereof, all the wicked of the earth shall wring them out and drink them. He's saving the worst of it. But I will declare forever, I will sing praises to the God of Jacob. All the horns of the wicked, there's the power. Horn is representation of power. All the horns of the wicked also will I cut off, but the horns of the righteous shall be exalted. So choose a ruler that knows that his power comes from God, who gives it and can take it away. Number 6, choose rulers that will be a terror to evil works. What makes our system of government is it is a system of law and order. It's not. It's supposed. It shows that. It shows Lady Justice, and she's got a blindfold on because she's not looking at race. She's not looking at culture. She's not looking at color. She's just, all she knows is the law. That's the way it should be. By the way, I thought it kind of interesting that all these police unions, they're wanting to dissolve them. And I got to think about that, because they're saying those police unions are defending those very officers that are abusing their power. And you know this to be true. The funny thing is that almost all of those unions are Democrat and support Democratic candidates. Isn't that something? The people that are throwing it back and saying, look what you've created, it's not really. Those unions protect those officers. Why? They pay their dues. They pay their dues, so they've got protection in some of those things. I'm not for. Listen, there's only one thing I hate worse than a riot, and that's a bad cop. Man, I'm telling you, I hate a bad cop. There was a fella. I saw this video, man, and I've never had anything just come over me. I mean, I was just furious. I never comment on social media. Never. I don't tweet. I don't do nothing. I don't Facebook. But I saw this thing, man, and I told him, I said, I will never drive through Canton as long as this cop is that white cop. But absolutely insane. They show this thing, he is cussing the top of his head, and the guy's trying to tell him that he's a concealed carry. He doesn't give him a chance. And when he does, he just goes crazy on this guy. And when I saw that, I thought, what in the world? I want that cop to be as professional as he could possibly, just like you have to be a professional in your job, I want him to be a professional in his job. And if he's a professional, I'll be kind and I'll be obedient. Okay? I will anyway. I mean, it's going to take a lot before I'm going to, just short of getting pistol whipped for nothing. And that shouldn't happen. I've never seen anybody pistol whip that was standing there saying yes or no, sir. I'm just asking. Anybody? Cop pistol whipping somebody or beating somebody for saying yes sir or no, sir? And what would you like me to do, sir? And here's my hands, sir. Put them behind my back, sir. Anybody? Always somebody fighting, resisting, right? They're human beings. How would you like to get punched in the face? How would you like to get kicked in the groin or tasered? There's another fellow, man. They shot him and killed him, and now it's big baloo about it. I'm watching the guy fight him for 5-10 minutes. Do you realize that it's a felony when you start fighting the cops? Okay. Anyway, I'll get past that. Some of you might not care for that. In Romans 13:2-3 it says, whosoever therefore resisteth the power, resisteth the ordinance of God, and they that resist shall receive to themselves damnation. For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to the evil. Now this is the, what's the word I'm looking for? Best state that it could be in, or the best scenario. For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to the evil. Wilt thou then not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise of the same. And that is that they don't bear the sword in vain. They can, I believe the word they use is they can execute. Did I cover that, or is it in the next verse? Oh, I think that's my next point. So, no president should pardon convicted murderers, rapists, or pedophiles. You'll find in the Bible there's nothing you can give to satisfy a murderer. And in fact, he is to be put to death. We wouldn't be taking care of near the population in our prisons if we just believed the Bible and followed it. Paul said, if I've done anything worthy of death, I refuse not to die. I mean, if you've done something worthy of death, murder, pedophilia, all the things that's listed, rape or whatever. You know what I can't find in the Old Testament? I searched it. And I'm not saying there's not instances of mentioning of it, but usually it's dealing with other powers. I can't find prisons. There's something about locking a man up in a cage that's not a good thing. But what I do find, and they talk about debtor's prison, this and that, but you're talking about when Rome's in charge or they're in Babylon or someplace else, they talk about prisons. But you don't really find a prison when God's talking about the law back there. You say, why? Well, if you've done something worthy of death, they kill you. If you've done something worthy of a beating, they beat you. And if you've done something worthy of a fine, they fine you. I'm for that. That sounds good. A lot cheaper, I mean, we're building more prisons than we can build, We build more prisons, I think we build schools these days. But, a good beating might do you good. I mean, I know I got a few good ones, and it helped me. I probably needed a few more. But you talk about a flogging, even a public flogging, you think that won't convince your kids to do right? Even though, that's one of the reasons why they did public hangings, so that everyone would fear. No president should be soft on crime for reasons of race. Religion. One time I did a check to see how many accusations of pedophilia was against the Catholic Church. And at that time, this has been years ago, it's 4,000 accusations. How many priests have you seen go to jail? How many priests have you seen they hung up? That's 4,000. I'm not saying all of them were true, but out of 4,000, I mean, you've only seen a handful that have been, most of them have just been defrocked. They took away their bishopric and, or moved them someplace. But very few of them have ever went to prison. I know more Baptists that have went to prison for pedophilia than I do Catholics. And I would put my hand against every one of those Baptists and send them to prison. But I want to know what's the deal. Somebody's, peeking out from under the blind there, giving somebody a pass. That shouldn't go on. It doesn't matter if it's for religious reasons or economic reasons or reasons of race. If you go out here and throw a rock through somebody's window, they'll arrest you, put you in jail. You're not going to get out on, you're not going to have a no bail. What's going on? You don't allow 14 million illegal aliens to come across this border and tap into our system and just literally just drain us while they take the money they earn here and send it back to Mexico. Not illegally. There's a way to do it legally, and I'm for it. Nobody else going to do that work. They do some good work, but there's got to be a system in place. It's the politicians that are using that as a pawn, and they won't make a decision on it. That's the reason we got the problem. Whatever happened to a statesman, just take care of the problem. I don't care if it's a revolving door. I don't care how many of them come across the border and work, and go home. But I don't want, they have a child and it's an American citizen, well, who wouldn't come here and do that? Or if they come across the border and all of a sudden they can go to any hospital and get taken care of. I can't do that. Not unless I give them my home. Yet they can. They got every illegal that's across that border has better health care than I do. I don't understand that. And that's all because of a bunch of stinking politicians. That's all it's because of. That's right. He's running the show now. But they'll allow 14 million illegal aliens so the hotel owner or the fruit farmer can make a buck more, pay them cheaper, while our government shells out our money for every conceivable social program. I don't care if they come over here and work, do you? I don't care if they come over and pick fruit or build houses or put on roofs or whatever they're going to do. But don't put them on the programs that I got to pay for. They want to be American citizens. You want to provide a pathway? Provide a pathway. But until you do, get them off the systems. Because they're just killing us economically. And then we can't even get rid of the bad ones. Bringing them back. Number 7, choose a ruler who believes in capital punishment for the worst of our society. I'm tired of feeding them. I'm tired of clothing them. I'm tired of housing them. I'm tired of giving them degrees, college degrees. I'm tired of them getting medical and dental. I think I mentioned medical and dental for, 40, 50, 60, 70 years. I mean, they live longer than most people because, they don't have the stress. Everything in their life is taken care of. They know what they're going to wear today. They know what they're going to eat today. They got everything provided for them. And he says, for he is a minister of God to thee for good, Romans 13:4. But if thou do that which is evil, be afraid, for he beareth not the sword in vain. It says there, for he is a minister of God, a revenger to execute wrath upon him that doeth evil. Good rulers believe in capital punishment. Bad rulers do not. Makes you kind of wonder when they're always for the criminal, that kind of makes me think they are a criminal. In Leviticus 20, the phrase put to death is found 9 times in the chapter for adultery, incest, homosexuality, bestiality, and in the context of a theocracy, which you have to make the difference, offering children to Moloch, cursing his father or his mother, possessing an evil spirit such as a familiar spirit, being a witch or a wizard. That's coming, by the way. That'll be under God's theocracy. But at least, he says there, adultery, incest, homosexuality, and bestiality. I mean, man, that was the death penalty. Numbers 35:31. Moreover, ye shall take no satisfaction for the life of a murderer, which is guilty of death, but he shall surely be put to death. That's what the book says. I believe that. I believe that's what helps keep our society in check. I believe that when you do that, and you do it speedily, not waiting 10 years, how about 10 days? Let's just give it 10 days. Okay? If something hadn't developed in 10 days, just noose them up, hang them high. You say, what it will do? It'll put fear into the population not to do after that fella. That thing you read back there about a parents of a child that's a glutton and a drunkard. Obviously, he's a teenager at least, but he could still be in their home. You had to be 20 years old to be an adult, be numbered to fight in Israel. You had to be 20, not 18. So I imagine this individual they're talking about is still in their father's home or their father and mother's home and under their authority. And this kid, if you want to call him, gets out of sorts, and he's a drunkard and riotous living, and it says mom and dad grabs him, takes him before the priest and everything, says our son's rebellious, blah, blah, blah. They take him out, and you know what they do? They stone him. You say, how horrible. Yeah, but you don't have to do it once. Once in your city, and I guarantee you every kid in town is going to behave themselves a lot better. See what they're doing now? They're burning our cities. Looting, raping, beating people. And we can't do anything about it now. We can't even arrest them. Choose a ruler who's not a lush, a cocaine, or a heroin addict. You'd think that would go without saying, but you got to include all these things these days. He said in Proverbs 31, verse 4 and 5, it is not for kings, O Lumiel, it is not for kings to drink wine, nor for princes strong drink. You got to admit, Trump doesn't drink a drop, not a drop. He does not drink alcohol at all. The Bible says that's a good thing. That's a good thing, not a bad thing. Probably more of America has been given away over some drunken party where politicians get together than you even know of. And it says it's good that they aren't given to strong drink. It says, lest they drink and forget the law and pervert the judgment of any of the afflicted. You know, when the Bible talks about afflicting the fatherless and the widow and the orphan, that type of deal, when the Bible talks about that, it's not just you kicking one on the side of the road or not refusing to give them a $5 bill when it says we'll work for food. That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about these politicians that pass these laws that oppress the poor, make it harder on them. They do it all the time. But we just don't think of it that way. But God is thinking of it that way. Support rulers who support less government, especially in our government. Proverbs 29:2 says, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn. Man, I'll tell you what, they passed me a law. Him cutting out all these regulations is a good idea. Because they literally made it impossible to start a business in the United States. I mean, you just can't imagine all the things they throw at you that you have to do and pay for. And surveys and you name it. Environmental surveys, all the things they threw at you, you couldn't even start a business. They started cutting all that, making it easier. I mean, he fits a lot of them, man. Our president fits a lot of these. So I don't like him. You don't have to like him. But you have to admit that he's been following a good portion of all these. That's what maybe you don't like his character. I know a lot of people don't. Maybe you got to hold your nose and But if you vote for Joe Biden, man, I got some questions about you. I don't know, man. Vote for whoever you want to, but know this. Before God, you'll answer for it. Our federal government was supposed to be simple. Court system, armies, no Internal Revenue Service, HUD, ATF, Social Security, et cetera, et cetera. It's supposed to be a simple system. The federal government just took care of the courts, the upper courts, and then they took care of standing armies. Over 750 different agencies within our government. 750. And you pay for all of it. When you've got that big of a government, man, it's just not going to give up the power that easy. You've given it the power. And now it's going to rule. It wants to rule over you. It just doesn't want to tell you what you can do. It wants to tell you how you can think. Day in and day out, don't you hear it? Don't you hear it on the TV, on the radio? Who listens to the radio? TV and the internet, and you're reading these articles and reading these tweets, and they're telling you what to think. You still listen to the radio, brother? Oh, car radio, okay. They're telling you what to think. They're telling you what to believe. They've been telling you for years. If you say, well, I want to believe this, no, you can't believe that. That's wrong. You can't believe that. I believe this. I don't care whether they like it or not. I really don't care. And this is the last one. I got to quit here. If possible, find a man to rule. If possible. There was a time in Israel when, let's face it, man, I always say the Lord was looking for a hairy-legged man, and instead he found Deborah. And it's not that he didn't give Barak the chance, or Barak. How do you pronounce that? Who pronounced that? Barak? Barak? We don't want to call him Barak, do we? Barak. He offered Barak the opportunity, but he said, I won't go unless Deborah goes. So she ends up, by the way, she does end up getting the credit for it, but in the New Testament it gives Barak the credit. God's looking for a man. He'll take a woman if he can't find a man, and he'll even do a good job. That woman will do a good job. There's been several cases. Margaret Thatcher was quite the leader, the Prime Minister in England. It's happened. Huh? Queen Victoria? Yeah, absolutely. Isaiah 3:12 says, as for my people, children are their oppressors, and women rule over them. O my people, they which lead thee cause thee to error, and destroy the way of thy paths. No good can come of it. God's looking for a man. Esther 1:22 says, and this has to do with Ahasuerus, the king, and he has a, how should I put it? He has a queen that's not quite obedient to the king. And she disobeys an order. She's supposed to come forth and present herself. Okay? I mean, you're a queen. That's part of it. Don't want to be a queen? Don't marry a king. And she was supposed to present herself. She says, no, I'm not going to. It says, for he sent letters into all the king's provinces, into every province according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language, that every man should bear rule in his own house, and that it should be published according to the language of every people. Do you know how important it was for that man that his wife be obedient to him? He was asking a nation to follow him. He was asking, listen, we're talking about from the river Egypt all the way over to India was the reign of the Persian Empire. And this man was asking everybody to follow him while his own wife disobeyed him right in front of the kingdom. You know, you think about this for a second. It works the same way in the home. If there is just conflict and fighting and, I mean, it's obvious there's no real head or authority in the home because it's just, how do you expect your children to grow up and be obedient? You see, what's all this about? It's not about being obedient to people, not ultimately. It's about being obedient to God. When you teach someone to respect authority, when God knocks on their heart and says, time to get saved, they obey. If you've taught them to be nothing but rebels, look out. Chances are they'll never get saved. They've learned to be a rebel. This thing's about eternal life. Not just being a good citizen. That's important. But it's about eternal life. So choose a good ruler because they're going to set the pace. At least try. You know, we're blessed in this country because we do get to vote. I don't know how fair the vote will be this time, you know. When you see somebody with a truckload of I won't get into it. If they do this thing over the phone or over the internet, I may not even bother because they're going to want to steal it. But you know, when we can choose a ruler, choose well, choose right, choose in good conscience toward God, because it can make a difference. And I realize God's the ultimate one that decides that thing. But the Bible says we're to pray. Why? Quiet, peaceable life. I'm all for that. I like quiet. I like peaceable. Things aren't quiet. Things aren't peaceable right now. But it's not due to the head of our nation. It's due to a lot of other lower chiefs that are in the thing. He didn't start this riot. And he's not perpetuating it. He's trying to put an end to it. But we got some people that want it to go on. Why? We got an election coming up. All right. So, realize this is only temporary till the Lord comes back. But you know what he says? He says, well, I just don't think they should be so mean and all this stuff. Do you realize he'll rule the nations with a rod of iron? The Lord Jesus Christ. A rod of iron. It's going to be a military dictatorship. See why? He's ruling a bunch of rebels, a bunch of sinners. And sometimes that's what it takes. You get out of line. Listen, you know what you're reading over there in Matthew 5? You're reading about the constitution of the millennium. If thy eye offend thee, pluck it out. We're not talking about some spiritual application here. We're talking about you've done something with that eye, and the Lord says, pluck it out or hellfire. And there's your choice. Can you imagine that? If thy hand offend thee, cut it off. All of a sudden, a little 5-finger discount, you're going to get caught. He says you can either go into life maimed or you can go into hell whole. And he's talking about the lake of fire that's on fire right there south of Jerusalem. And you've got to make a choice. You talk about a ruler. I mean, here you are, hopefully you can get somebody to help you. Because I'm not going into hellfire. If I was that, and I realize that's not us, but if I was that individual, You better believe I'd cut off my hand. I would see that lake of fire, the weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth that's going on in that thing. First of all, shouldn't have done any wrong. All right. Any questions about what I covered? You understand the difference between a theocracy that's going to be and what we have now? We have a government that is non-religious. I like it that way. The separation of church and state. I didn't say the separation of God and state, or the separation of the Bible and state, or the separation of prayer and state. I said the separation of church and state. That means no denomination is running this government. Because when religious people start running the government, people die. Okay? That's all that means. We need God, we need the Bible, we need prayer in our government. We just don't need a denomination running it. And that's the only thing that means. Yeah.
You think, I believe this, that what happened to Israel, how they went